Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. I've got two articles I want to take a look at today. One is related to the peace plan, and the other is related to the one world religion, which the false prophet will bring into effect. All surrounding the 7-year tribulation and the end time events spoken of in Daniel and Revelation. So the peace plan is obviously kind of the big key event that we see coming up, and at this point, it's going to occur after the Israeli elections and before the U.S. elections. This one's from Politico.com, and it provides some updates on the trip that Kushner's going to do at the end of February. So Kushner to visit Mideast for peace plan push. So they're basically trying to get everybody involved and on board outside of the Jews and the Palestinians, trying to get everybody else there to support the plan in word and monetarily as well. The president's son-in-law will reveal significant details of the economic portion of Trump's administration's peace plan to the Middle East. So it says Jared Kushner will crisscross the Middle East later this month, seeking buy-in for his peace plan from the leaders throughout the region. During this time, it says, the president's son-in-law will, for the first time, share significant details of the economic portion of the plan. And what is the economic portion? Does it involve money? It does involve money, but it likely will also involve some significant land swaps, and that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. It says Jared is going to present the economic plan to the region. The economic plan only works if the region supports it, and so they're going to basically to all the neighbors. It says Kushner's week-long trip, which begins last week of February, will include stops in Oman, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Joining him will be Jason Greenblatt, the co-author, if you will, of it. The trip was initially planned for January, but of course the government shutdown put a stop to that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, and will the other nations react to it favorably. The forthcoming trip is intended in part to gauge regional reaction to the economic portion of the plan. And again, what part of the plan are they hiding? What is the other part? I guess the other part would be land swaps, and maybe they're not going to reveal that yet. But interesting that they're revealing at least a portion of it. Part of this is intended to show that we're really serious about presenting something. That's because they continue to delay it. So they're trying to do things to keep the energy up, if you will, keep the visibility up. I think the key is going to be Arab leaders being persuaded that the overall deal, not just the economic side, but political side, looks credible to them. So apparently they're going to also see the political side of it, and not just the economic side. Maybe this time they're going to show the economic side, but then how would they be persuaded on the political side if they weren't also being shown that side of it? So I think they'll get glimpses of the political side and all sides of it. Basically, they're going to, the U.S., in a matter of saying, is really going to gather all nations, if you will, to agree on the peace plan to be presented after the Israeli elections. And that's very biblical terminology in relation to all nations being gathered against Israel. I think in a similar way, all nations are being gathered to kind of promote and to agree upon the peace deal to see if they can make a run of it. Of course, we haven't heard anything further from Macron about his peace deal. So, interesting situation. This whole trip is happening the end of February, and of course, at this point in time, the date is still after the Israeli elections for the full revealing of the peace plan. And so, I think things are really going to gear up in the latter half of this year. It's an exciting time. I think time is running out very fast. I think the 7-year tribulation starts in 2021, which means events really going to start occurring quite quickly, and likely when they do start occurring, they'll probably all occur in quick succession, one right after the other, in a matter of weeks or months. And I don't think that it's going to be spanned over years. Here's the other article, ZeroHedge.com. Snyder, one world religion looms as Pope and Islam's top imam sign a historic covenant. So you have the Pope, the quote-unquote Christian leader of the world, if you will, signing a covenant, apparently, with the Islamic leader of the world, if you will. It says a historic interfaith covenant was signed in the Middle East on Monday, and the mainstream media in the United States has been almost entirely silent about it. So what is this about exactly? Sheikh Ahmad al-Tayeb is considered to be the most important imam in Sunni Islam, and he arrived at the signing ceremony in Abu Dhabi with Pope Francis hand in hand in a symbol of interfaith brotherhood. So remember, what happens in the last days is one world government comes into place, a one world currency, and a one world religion. And it appears that the major religious leaders of the world are trying to do that. They're trying to come together. They're trying to say, you know what, we have the same God. And we know that to not be true at all. It says, but this wasn't just a ceremony for Catholics and Muslims. According to a British news source, the signing of this covenant was done in front of a global audience of religious leaders from Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and other faiths. Remember, the point of this, and biblically and prophetically, is that there will be a one world religion, and like I say, all the leaders of the world are trying to get together, especially the monotheistic leaders, the ones that believe in one God, because they can easily say that we all believe in the same God. It's all the same God. We just worship in different ways. That's what they say. It says the Pope and Grand Imam Al-Azhar have signed an historic declaration of fraternity, calling for peace between nations, religions, and races in front of a global audience of leaders. Pope Francis, the leader of the world's Catholics, and Sheikh Ahmed al-Tayeb, the head of Sunni Islam's most prestigious seat of learning, arrived at the ceremony in Abu Dhabi. It says, in other words, there was a concerted effort to make sure that all the religions of the world were represented at the gathering. And so if you don't see the world moving toward a one world religion, well, then your eyes are closed effectively, or you're not paying attention to what's happening, and you're not reading the Bible, recognizing that the one world religion, the false prophet, will come and try to unite the world, and ultimately the Antichrist will cause the abomination of desolation in the third temple in an attempt to get all the world to recognize the Antichrist as God when he sets on the throne in the third temple. And so, yeah, the push is for a one world government, a one world currency, and one world religion. And that's what the move is going ahead for this one. It says there's a lot of language about peace in the document, but it goes way beyond just advocating for peace. Over and over, the word God is used to simultaneously, and this is the key point, identify Allah and the God of Christianity. Just one example, it says, who believe in God, which God is this? The Islamic God, the Christian God? They're not the same, but they're putting them together. We who believe in God, and in the final meeting with Him and His judgment, on the basis of our religious and moral responsibility, and through this document, call upon ourselves, upon the world leaders of the world, as well as the architects of international policy and world economy, world government, and world economic unity, a one world currency, to work strenuously to spread the culture of tolerance and of living together in peace, to intervene at the earliest opportunity to stop the shedding of innocent blood, and except for the innocent blood of the aborted babies that they're killing full term, and bring an end to wars, conflicts, environmental decay, and moral and cultural decline that the world is presently experiencing. The world is experiencing that just because of sin, and the Pope needs to, instead of getting together with other leaders and nations, he needs to encourage the Christians to pray for peace and to stop abortion and to follow God effectively if they want to fulfill all these sorts of things, all this moral decline. Start reaching your neighbor for Christ effectively is what the solution is. It says, on top of that, the document also boldly declares that diversity of religions that we see in the world was willed by God. So interesting statements coming out of this meeting between the Pope and the Islamic leader. What do we see eventually out of this? Prophetically, we see a one world government and one world currency and a one world religion. And all those fronts are currently in progress right now. And the last major one, the one world religion, which many of us can't really understand or haven't seen recently, is really this push to agree that all the monotheistic religions believe in the same God. And that's not true. If you read the religious texts of each, you'll see distinct differences in the personality of the gods that they talk about, the naming, the history, etc. of the gods that they talk about, and by no stretch are they the same. So a couple of interesting articles, guys. I'll leave there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.